In the serene peaks of the Italian Alps lies the small town of Cavalese, a place known for its tranquility and breathtaking views of alpine vistas. But this idyllic destination would go from a hot spot for winter sports to the scene of a horrifying tragedy, one that would end in the loss of 20 people and would strain Italian and US relations. The 3rd of February 1998, Trentino, Italy. The winter resort town of Cavalese thrives as a tourist destination, with its slopes drawing visitors from all across Europe. It is a renowned getaway, especially during winter for cross-country and alpine skiing, but also during summer for excursions. Cavalese is located within a valley in the Italian Alps, more precisely the Dolomites, a renowned mountain range. To help skiers reach the mountains, the town operates a small but vital cable car system. It is used to transport people between the valley floor and higher elevations of the mountain. Suspended by thick steel cables and supported by tall pylons, the system relies on taut support lines stretching across long spans of open air. In one car, there are 19 passengers and an operator. 80 miles away is Aviano Air Base, which, as well as Italy's own armed forces, also maintains a significant US presence as part of NATO operations. Missions were flown from this airbase extensively during the wars following the breakup of Yugoslavia. On a training mission is an EA-6B Prowler aircraft, an electronic warfare jet which carries equipment designed to disrupt enemy radar and communications. It is owned by the US Marine Corps and has a crew of 4, a pilot and navigator who sit in the front, and behind them 2 electronic countermeasures officers. At 3:13 PM local time, the jet is performing low-flying manoeuvres between the mountains and valleys. The crew are flying by visual flight rules. On board, the navigator is filming himself, the pilot next to him, and the view out the window on a handheld camcorder. Over the jagged skyline of the Italian Alps, the American jet thunders through a narrow valley. The pilots, as far as they know, are aware of no obstacles in their path. According to the maps they've been provided with, the valley ahead is clear of obstructions. The aircraft sweeps into the Val di Fiemme, a narrow corridor of steep forested slopes. The Prowler skims just 300 feet above the ground. As they race through the valley, the pilot catches a glimpse of something that makes both his heart jump out of his chest and his blood run cold. Suspended high above the ground, almost invisible from his viewpoint, stretches a 2-inch thick support cable, supporting a cable car carrying 20 occupants. He tries to steer the aircraft and make an evasive manoeuvre, but it is too late. In a split second, the aircraft's right wing strikes the cable, severing it, sending the cable car and its occupants plummeting 80 meters to the ground below. Those inside the cable car don't stand a chance. All 20 people on board, skiers, tourists, locals, lose their lives on impact. There are no survivors. Incredibly, despite a huge gash in the wing, it stays together and the Prowler remains airborne. The crew manage to regain control and climb to a safe altitude, making an emergency return to Aviano, landing safely. Unbeknownst to many at the time, the full gravity of what had just happened was about to sink in, not just for the crew or for the families of those lost, but for the relationship between 2 nations. News of the crash spreads rapidly. Italian authorities rush to the scene, combing through the wreckage. The United States military quickly acknowledged that one of its jets had severed the cable, triggering a full-scale joint investigation. The case becomes more than just a question of negligence, but a matter of obstruction. Unlike a commercial airliner, the EA-6B Prowler was not equipped with a flight data recorder or cockpit voice recorder, making it harder to determine the crew's exact actions, but radar data, flight plans and interviews with the 4-man crew provide a partial picture. The crew had been flying extremely low, around 300 feet, well below the minimum allowed altitude of 2,000 feet in mountainous terrain. They were also travelling above the authorised speed limit for low-level flights over populated or recreational areas. The crew insist they were higher than 300 feet and that the altimeter, the mechanical instrument which displays the heights they are flying at, must have been giving them a false reading. But upon inspection, the component is found to be working normally, although in past instances this individual aircraft had in fact given crews faulty readings, although it would be thought an experienced pilot would be able to visually tell the difference between 300 and 2,000 feet. In a shocking twist, investigators discover that the map the crew was using did not include the cable car line, a vital detail that could have prevented the tragedy. As part of a plea deal between the two backseat aircrew, they agreed to testify against the two up-front pilots, revealing that they had brought a video camera on board and were recording footage from the flight, potentially crucial evidence, but this was said to be destroyed by the navigator and pilot after their return to base by replacing the tape with a blank one and then burning the incriminating footage. The 4 crew members are returned to the United States, where the pilot, Captain Richard Ashby, and navigator Captain Joseph Schweizer are court-martialed. Ashby is acquitted of involuntary manslaughter and negligent homicide, a verdict that shocks and angers the Italian public. Later that year, a second court-martial is convened, this time not for the crash itself, but for what happened after. Captains Richard Ashby and Joseph Schweizer are charged with obstruction of justice and conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman, after it was discovered that they had destroyed a videotape recorded during the flight on the day of the disaster. This tape, which could have served as crucial evidence, was deliberately erased. Its existence and its destruction only came to light in August 1998, months after the accident. The 2 other crew members were granted testimonial immunity and chose to come forward, revealing what had really happened. They gave full statements to military investigators admitting that the tape had been filmed and then deliberately destroyed to cover up the flight's violations. In May 1999, Ashby and Schweizer were both found guilty. Each are dismissed from the Marine Corps. The pilot, Ashby, is sentenced to 6 months in prison, but released after 4.5 months for good behaviour. Schweizer avoids jail time, but he too is permanently removed from military service. The families of the victims are given monetary compensation from both the US and Italian governments, but how do you put a price on not only human life, but that of a loved one? If you found this YouTube documentary interesting, thought-provoking or entertaining, consider leaving a like on it for the time and effort it took me to make. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.